Hello everyone, Schematist here, and this is going to be a little bit different. Usually I'm either going to show a remix or creating original work or making a tutorial, but this question has been coming up into my inbox and I thought that instead of continuously blasting messages back out, I think it'd just be fun to talk about it, get some feedback, and see what you all think actually, because this is a topic that I think has no right answer. I have an opinion about it, but I think it's better to at least put it out there and see what other people say now. And hopefully it can come out to a good discussion. But the question is, I don't want to take up too much time, how do you go about breaking out into the industry and getting gigs? Now this is funny because I would not consider myself broken out of anything. I've only been doing this for about 5 years now, just about. And I still think that I have a way, like an extremely long journey to climb. But truthfully, something has been happening and I have been getting gigs more often lately, even to the point where I cannot take all of them. To be honest, I've been giving away more gigs to my friends and my buddies, because I just can't. I just don't have the time. So something is happening, because before, when I first started, getting gigs was insanely difficult, almost impossible. At first I used to solicit my work. I would go directly to the game developers and give them my portfolio and say, hey, listen, I saw your project, blah 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 blah, I'm interested, here's my work. If you're interested in whatever, please send me an email. And I feel like soliciting almost never worked. I think it worked for me maybe once or twice, but I haven't had as great as a result as when I stopped soliciting completely. And instead of building this kind of, I don't know, this energy that's kind of anxious and or overly anxious, that I just need to work for someone, I need to get a job, I need to get a gig, I need to write for a game, I instead switched it and was just more on the lines of, hey, I need to work on myself and build myself. And that's the fun question. I can't even recall how many times I went to Google and asked the same question in several different forms. I came across several interviews, I came across forum postings, and tons of people said, similar answers. And this is where I got frustrating, because I'm thinking I'm gonna get the secret, right? The secret code. And then when you tune in, you'll hear something like, oh, I broke out in the industry just by doing what I loved, and I kept doing it, and I did it every day. That's so frustrating to me, because I feel like that should be default. If you love something, whether it's writing music, singing, dancing, you're gonna want to do it as much as you can, all times of the day, anytime you have free time. So this is why it's not bad advice by any means, but I just feel like it's almost redundant, because we're gonna do that. Like, if you love something, no one needs to tell you that you need to do it every day. So what is the secret to how I'm getting gigs now compared to before, and how people from before have broken out into in that kind of era, and now it's all a puzzle. But I think it's starting to make more sense as I go along. And I think what happens is you have to pay attention to the date that you're looking at these past interviews, the date that you're looking at these past answers to that question. Because I think breaking out in the industry, or breaking out in the indie field at least, worked very differently 5 to 10 years ago, to 2 years ago, to 3 years ago, till now. I mean, we're now in late 2016, and I guarantee it, the way someone did it 5 years ago was different than how we have to do it now, and it will be different from how someone else has to do it in 2020 or in 2025. You understand? I think that now, particularly, every composer now, or game developer even, depending on what art form you're targeting, has to be a brand. And that's where I feel like the distinction came in from me being a composer and just throwing my work out at people, versus being a brand that just does a thing, that provides a service. Now, this may get a little bit of some hate, but I want to try and explain. I think back then, one of the biggest things that I noticed was social media was not as heavy. Now we have everything, right? If I make a list, we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Google Plus, we have Instagram, LinkedIn is here, Tumblr, Pinterest, we have Snapchat, we have Vine, we have Meerkat. Like the list is completely insane, right? I think at this point, everyone, every artist, every musician needs to be a brand. This is completely critical. There is no escaping this. It needs to happen. And it could be a scary thing, because what you're doing is you're basically putting yourself out into the world, right? You're putting your whole being, all your work, your heart at the judgment and criticism of someone who's never met you, of someone who doesn't know you, and it's scary, right? It's not something that we all talk about. It's not something that your friends understand. It's something that you know you want, but to make that first initial leap is super terrifying. But you have to do it. You have to be a brand. As soon as I started to make the moves to become one, people started to come to me for requests and to work on their projects. And I think this is a completely different scene instead of soliciting, because now there's like a little bit of leverage, right? You know that when they come to you, they've already looked through your portfolio. They know exactly what they want. It's easier for you. At this point, you can kind of skip all of the uncomfortableness, right? Because the client already feels familiar with you and your work, so you can start discussing rates and time frames and deadlines, and it's such a smoother process in this way. And I think the reason why it's smoother is because they've already analyzed your work and who you are before anything happened, before any actual conversation took place with you. And as a musician, I think your first place to start, before you even do anything, before you do anything at all, is to completely make a SoundCloud account. If you do not have a SoundCloud account, you are making a huge mistake, right? I'm not saying it's impossible to get gigs without it, because you definitely can, but you will be putting yourself at a huge disadvantage without one. Sadly, they did take out the SoundCloud group option, which I absolutely loved. I thought it was amazing, even though some groups were a little bit spammy, and I guess some people can argue that they didn't really foster too much of a connection. But if you had a nice moderated group, I guarantee it was a great idea. But regardless, even though they took that out, you need to make a SoundCloud. However, before you even get into that, I honestly think that it would be best to have a logo. A strong logo that represents who you are, what you're about, your brand, your image, your music, everything about you. And this logo, and I mean, this has to be good. If you go into like Microsoft Paint and you cook up something in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you do up a whole bunch of squares, triangles, and circles, and you call it a logo, it's not going to be authentic. People are going to see right through that. It's going to be obvious that you don't care about yourself. And that's going to be the difference between someone continuing to go through your portfolio and listen to you, or turning away. And I feel like a banner would be a great idea in addition to that logo. So basically, a banner and a logo is a must. It could be subtle, it could be artsy, it could be colorful, whatever you feel it best represents who you are. That is going to be the first thing you need, because once you have that, then people can automatically paint you as a serious character. I wonder what this person does. They clearly took time to put into this image that represents their brand. So what is their content actually about, and what does it look like? What does it sound like? Can I trust them to deliver? And that's when you start to flesh out your portfolio on SoundCloud, right? It would be good to have a pro account, right, to put things in the spotlight and have a nice little order. You don't necessarily need to have one, but it'd be nice. But SoundCloud is a must. I think if you're on a SoundCloud, it's great because you also can link it to other websites, which you will definitely need to have a Twitter as well. Twitter, I think, is misused by a lot of musicians. I think some people may think Twitter is just post your work here or post your deals here constantly, just throwing it out. Here's what I did. here's what I did. I just finished this. Listen to this. I finished this remix yesterday. I finished this remix right now. Like, honestly, that's super annoying. Twitter is, I think, the most, it's like a subtle social media platform. It's more about conversation and connecting, right? It's not really where someone wants to go to consume as much, more as though to just have a conversation. It's about the mundane. It's about who you are. What do you like to do? What are you doing right now? What are you working on? What did you have for dinner last night? It's a different scene, but it still helps your brand because it shows the human aspect of you that YouTube doesn't show, right? That SoundCloud doesn't show. On Twitter, you're not just the person behind a keyboard. You're the human being behind this brand you're cultivating. And as well, when you make this Twitter account, you should also use the same logo that you use on your SoundCloud account, right? So people know who they're talking to, the same person, right? You can start to interchange these as you gain, I guess, popularity or familiarity, but at first you need to really be consistent with these. Why? Mostly because no one knows that you exist. This is the hardest pill to swallow. You want to get gigs, but you have to start from the fundamental and then continue up. No one's going to know you exist for a while. I think you could possibly, you want to give it at least a year, 6 months to a year, and this is me being very modest and mild. It could take 2 years, but once it starts to roll, I wish I knew this when I first started, Jesus. It would have been much easier, but once you start to roll, you can start to get a little bit more creative and do things outside of the box, but at first, you want to play it safe. Rather safe than sorry. Also, you will have to have a YouTube account. Also have the same logo on your YouTube account. Hopefully you could have the same name if that YouTube name is available and not taken. Your musician name should be fairly easy to spell. I don't think you should have several numbers, capital and lowercase x's and squares in your name. I think it should be something that's somewhat catchy. And you also want to have something that doesn't compete with another name on Google. For example, if someone were to type in the name that you've chosen for yourself, I would hope that there's no other celebrity or anything else that's super popular with that same name that can interfere with your search results, because you want to saturate the internet. That's the main thing you want to do. You just want to take over every avenue of the internet that deals with that particular name. It'll be much easier to find you, and if it's easier to find you, then you're already in good hands, right? The thing that I feel most people do that I don't do, and I probably should start doing, is start using Pinterest or Instagram for more of my musical content. I don't do it as much. I mostly use Instagram for my photography, but some people are very smart about it, and they'll post up tracks that they're working on in like 10-second, 20-second videos. Back when Vine was still alive, though, I forgot that Vine was bought out, but people thought that Vine was kind of silly, but a lot of musicians lingered on Vine, and even now that Vine is no longer here, right, the popularity that they gained from Vine was transferred to other platforms like YouTube, which is why I strongly believe you should try and saturate as many different platforms and tell your same musical story in different varieties across these platforms with the same logo again, the same banner, the same musician name, and have a consistent theme. This is all about branding. This is going to make it so much easier for developers to find you, and if they stumble upon you by accident, they can easily link up to any one of your other social media platforms and quite literally stalk you, right? You want them to stalk you. You want to feel known. You don't want to feel like a stranger, because if you're a game developer, you're putting in hours and hours into coding and generating a story, right? You want to make sure that the person that's doing your audio is trustworthy. You want to know that they have the ability to write in a way that's going to fit your characters, it's going to fit your environment, and fit your vision. You don't want to have hesitation, and you don't want to be anxious that they can't do it. Yeah, so you want to make it easy. So yes, how I feel you should break out, honestly, it's branding. And yes, it's getting harder. Well, maybe I shouldn't even say harder. It's just becoming different. Think of yourself as a brand. Think of yourself as a company, not just as a musician, but as a well-balanced company, right? You have to be somewhat I would say, well versed in several aspects of music making, and don't think of it as this kind of impossible task. Oh, there are so many composers out there, and I'll never get a job or whatever. It's crazy because I'm giving jobs away. Like, ask my friends, I'm giving jobs away. With the explosion of apps nowadays, it's silly to think that. The developers out here today are just numerous, and they keep coming. It's as easy as just Googling game developers, or going to Twitter and typing in game dev, and you'll find a whole list of things that are in development currently. People who don't have musicians yet, they're always waiting. So I would say just get that out of your head and just do it. And honestly, for those of you who are maybe still on the fence, if you're super serious about this and you have already done most of what I've already talked about, why don't you go ahead and drop me a line below. Give me your Twitter handle, give me your SoundCloud, give me your YouTube, and let's just connect. It's just that simple. You've got to start somewhere. You might as well start now. And hopefully everyone else who's doing the same thing, drop it down below and let's connect. We're all musicians, we're all artists, we want to get there. You've got to start. So, that's how I feel about it. I could be wrong, but let me hear your thoughts. Alright? Schematist out. Nice chatting, guys. And cheers.